here is something that will mess with your head. The average American with a full-time job makes more money in a single year than a medieval king spent feeding his entire castle for a decade. You have electricity, running water, a phone that contains all human knowledge, and a car that moves faster than any horse that ever lived. And yet, somehow, by the third week of the month, you are sitting on your couch eating cereal for dinner, checking your bank account like it is a horror movie, and wondering where all the money went. This is one of those problems that makes people feel crazy, because on paper, you are doing everything right. You have the job, you get the paycheck, and you are still broke. Not homeless broke, not starving broke, but that special modern kind of broke where you work 40 or 50 hours a week and still cannot breathe. So what is going on? Why does having a job no longer feel like enough? That is exactly what we are going to figure out today. Introduction. Let me tell you about our friend. We will call him Grug. Grug is a simple guy. He lived a long time ago, back when the economy was really straightforward. You needed food, you went and found food. You needed shelter, you built shelter. There was no landlord. There was no subscription service. Nobody was charging Grug a convenience fee for the privilege of eating his own mammoth. Grug worked to survive, and when the work was done, he rested. Simple. Now let us look at you. You wake up at 6:30. You commute for 45 minutes. You work for 8, 9, sometimes 10 hours. You commute back. You get home tired. And then you open your bank account and realize that after rent, car payment, insurance, groceries, utilities, phone bill, internet, gas, and that one streaming service you forgot to cancel, you have about $200 of breathing room until the next paycheck. And that is if nothing goes wrong.
If your tire does not blow, if your kid does not need new shoes, if your tooth does not start hurting, Grug would look at this situation and be very confused. He would say something like, "You work more than me, you are tired more than me, but somehow you have less than me. What is wrong with your tribe?" And honestly, that is a fair question. So let us answer it. Not with politics, not with blame. Just with a clear look at how modern life is actually structured and why it can make even a hard-working person feel like they are running on a treadmill that someone keeps tilting upward. The paycheck illusion. The first thing to understand is that your paycheck is a magic trick. Not the fun kind. The kind where someone shows you a big number and then makes most of it disappear before you even touch it. Let us say you get a job that pays $50,000 a year. That sounds decent, right? $50,000. But here is what actually happens. Federal taxes take a bite. State taxes take a bite. Social Security takes a bite. Medicare takes a bite. By the time the check hits your account, that $50,000 is closer to $38,000 or $39,000. Some people lose even more depending on where they live. So you are already starting the game with about 75 cents of every dollar you supposedly earned. And nobody really explains this to you in school. You hear 50,000 and your brain builds a life around 50,000, but your actual life has to run on significantly less. Now Grug, he did not have this problem. When Grug caught a fish, he got the whole fish. Nobody showed up and said, "Actually, Grug, 25% of that fish belongs to the tribe administrator." The fish was his. The work was directly connected to the reward. For you, the connection between work and reward has been stretched so thin that it barely makes sense anymore. And this is just the starting point. The money has not even left your account yet.
The big three that eat everything.
There are 3 expenses in modern American life that consume the vast majority of your income before you get to decide anything fun or meaningful about your money: housing, transportation, and healthcare. These 3 categories alone can eat 50 to 70% of your take-home pay. Let that sink in. Let us start with housing. The average rent in the United States right now is somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000 a month, depending on where you are. In big cities, it is way more than that. In some places, a basic one-bedroom apartment costs more per month than the entire annual salary of someone working full-time at minimum wage in the 1980s, adjusted for inflation. Housing costs have exploded. Back in the 1970s and 80s, the general advice was to spend about 25% of your income on housing. Today, a huge number of Americans spend 30, 40, sometimes even 50%.
And here is the painful part. It is not because people are choosing luxury apartments with rooftop pools and granite countertops. A lot of these people are renting completely average places. Nothing fancy, just a roof, 4 walls, and a functioning toilet. The baseline has gotten expensive. Then you have transportation. Most of America is built in a way where you need a car to get to your job. That is not a choice. That is infrastructure. You need the car to make the money, but the car itself costs a fortune. The average new car payment right now is over $700 a month. Used cars are not much better because prices went up on those too. Then add insurance, gas, maintenance, and registration. You could easily spend $1,000 a month just to own the thing that gets you to the place that pays you. Think about that for a second. A huge chunk of your work is just paying for the ability to get to work. Grug is somewhere shaking his head. And then healthcare.
This one is almost too depressing to talk about, but we have to. Even with a job that provides insurance, Americans are paying hundreds of dollars a month in premiums. And that does not mean things are free when you go to the doctor. You still have co-pays, deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, and surprise bills that show up weeks later like a jump scare. A single trip to the emergency room can cost thousands of dollars, even with insurance. So when someone says, "I have a job but I feel broke," they are not being dramatic. Once you subtract taxes, housing, a car, and the basic right to see a doctor when something is wrong, there is genuinely not much left. And we have not even talked about food, utilities, childcare, or student loans yet. The invisible costs that keep stacking. On top of the big three, modern life has this sneaky way of bleeding you with 1,000 small cuts. Each one seems minor on its own, but together they form this constant drain on your account that never stops. Your phone bill, your internet bill, the software subscription you need for work, the other subscription you forgot about, the fee your bank charges you for not having enough money, which is honestly the most insulting invention in the history of finance. Late fees, activation fees, processing fees, convenience fees, which are never actually convenient for you. Then there is food. Groceries are noticeably more expensive than they were even 3 or 4 years ago. A basic grocery run for a family can easily cost $150 to $200, and that is not buying steak and lobster. That is bread, eggs, chicken, some vegetables, and a box of cereal. Eating out is barely an option anymore either. A regular meal at a sit-down restaurant for 2 people can cost $50 to $60 with tip. Grug would be horrified by this. In his world, food was hard to get, but it was free once you got it. In your world, food is everywhere, but it all costs money. And the cheapest food, The stuff that fits into a tight budget, is usually the least healthy, which creates its own set of costs later. There is something deeply broken about a system where a bag of chips costs $2 and a bag of apples costs $7. And let us not forget the biggest invisible cost of all, time. When you work 8 or more hours, commute for another hour or 2, and spend your weekends recovering or doing errands, you do not have time to do the things that would save you money. You do not have time to cook every meal from scratch. You do not have time to comparison shop for every purchase. You do not have time to fix things yourself. So you pay for convenience. You order delivery. You hire someone to do the repair. You buy the quicker option instead of the cheaper option. Not because you are bad with money, but because you are out of hours. This is a trap that nobody talks about enough. The job takes your time, and the lack of time takes more of your money. The lifestyle expectations machine. Now here is where it gets a little more psychological, because it is not just about the math. It is about what your brain thinks normal life should look like. Every single day, you are surrounded by signals telling you what an acceptable life costs. Social media shows you people your age taking vacations, driving nice cars, buying homes, wearing new clothes. Advertising tells you that you deserve a break, that you should treat yourself, that you have earned it. And the baseline definition of a normal life keeps creeping upward. 50 years ago, a normal middle-class life meant a modest house, 1 car, a family vacation once a year, and maybe eating out once a week. Today, a normal life apparently means a nice apartment or house, 2 cars, the newest phone every year or 2,
multiple streaming services, regular dining out, a gym membership, travel, and an aesthetic Instagram presence that proves you are doing okay. Nobody voted on this upgrade. It just happened. Slowly,
Through advertising, through social comparison, through the way products and services were designed to become essential. And now, even when you know it is happening, it is incredibly hard to resist because it does not feel like luxury. It feels like the bare minimum. Grug only compared himself to the other cavemen in his immediate tribe. If everyone had roughly the same stuff, everyone felt fine. But you are comparing yourself to 8 billion people simultaneously through a glowing rectangle in your pocket. Your brain was not built for that. Nobody's brain was. So you feel behind even when you are not. You feel broke even when you technically have enough to survive. Because surviving and feeling like you are living a real life are two very different things. The wage gap that nobody explains well. Here is a number that explains a lot. Between 1979 and 2023, worker productivity in the United States went up dramatically. We are talking about 60 or 70% more output per worker. You would think that means workers got paid 60 or 70% more, right? They did not. Not even close. Wages for the average worker, adjusted for inflation, barely moved. They went up a tiny fraction of that. So where did all that extra value go? It went to the top. Executive pay, corporate profits, and shareholder returns all exploded during that same period. The people doing the actual work got a little more. The people owning the companies got a lot more. This is not a political opinion. It is documented economic data. And it matters because it explains why your parents might have been able to buy a house on one income in 1985, and you can barely afford rent on 2 incomes in 2024. The cost of everything went up. The pay for regular work did not keep pace. That gap is real, and it is the invisible force pressing on millions of people who do everything right and still feel like they are losing. Grug would be confused by this too. In his world, if you worked harder, you got more. If the tribe had a great hunting season, everyone ate better. The idea that the tribe could produce more than ever before while most of the hunters got the same small portion would make no sense to him. And honestly, it should not make much sense to us either. The debt trap that feels like oxygen. Because wages have not kept up with costs, people borrow. And this is where things get really sticky. Student loans, credit cards, car loans, medical debt, buy now, pay later apps, personal loans. Americans are carrying record levels of debt, and most of it is not from reckless spending. It is from trying to access the basic building blocks of a normal life: education, a car, healthcare, a roof. Credit card interest rates right now average over 20%. That means if you carry a balance, you are paying a massive premium on every single purchase you already could not comfortably afford. It is like falling into a hole and being charged a fee for every minute you spend trying to climb out. And the system is designed this way on purpose. The easier it is to borrow, the less pressure there is on wages to actually rise. If people can float the gap between what they earn and what life costs by using debt, then the system keeps running. Nobody has to fix the underlying problem, because the credit card is a temporary patch that feels like a solution, but is actually a time bomb. Grug did not have debt. If Grug wanted something he could not get today, he waited. There was no caveman credit card, no installment plan on a new spear. The concept of owing someone for something you already consumed would have seemed like a curse to him, and maybe it is. Why saving feels impossible. Financial advice loves to tell you to save. Put aside 6 months of expenses for emergencies. Invest 15% of your income for retirement. Build a budget and stick to it. And all of that is technically correct, but it assumes something that is not true for most people, which is that there is money left over to save. When your paycheck is consumed by rent, car payments, groceries, insurance, utilities, debt payments, and the basic cost of existing, the idea of saving 15% sounds like a joke. Not a funny joke, a mean joke. Like telling someone who is drowning that they should really consider learning to swim. The savings rate in America is extremely low right now. Most people could not cover a $500 emergency without borrowing. And that statistic is not because Americans are lazy or stupid or bad with money. It is because the math does not work for a huge number of people. Grug saved naturally. When he had extra food, he stored it. There was nothing else competing for that surplus. He did not have a landlord taking most of it before he could set it aside. The surplus was his, automatically. Modern workers do not have an automatic surplus. They have an automatic deficit. And then they get told it is their fault for not budgeting better. That is a special kind of cruelty. The emotional weight of functional brokenness. Here is the part that does not show up in any economic chart. Feeling broke when you have a job does something to your mind. It creates a specific type of stress that is hard to describe but easy to recognize. You feel like a fraud. You have a job, a car, maybe a decent apartment. From the outside, you look fine. But inside, you are doing math constantly. You are calculating whether you can afford to go out to eat this week. You are wondering if you should skip the doctor visit because of the copay. You are lying awake at night thinking about what would happen if you lost your job for even 1 month. This is not the same as being poor. It is something different. It is being functional but fragile. One bad event away from a crisis. And that fragility is exhausting. It affects your relationships because you argue about money. It affects your health because stress does terrible things to your body. It affects your work because you are scared to take risks or push back on anything since you cannot afford to lose this paycheck. Grug experienced stress too, obviously. But Grug's stress was about immediate survival. It was clear and simple. Predator nearby? Run. Food gone? Go find more. Your stress is abstract and never-ending. It is a quiet hum of anxiety that follows you everywhere, even into your bed at night. Modern financial stress does not come with a clear threat. It comes with a spreadsheet and a knot in your stomach. So what can actually be done? This is not a video that is going to pretend there is one weird trick that fixes all of this. There is not. The structural problems are real and they require structural solutions that go beyond any individual decision. But there are things worth knowing and worth doing. First, understand the game. Just knowing why you feel broke, understanding the gap between productivity and wages, understanding how the cost of living has outpaced income, understanding how the system uses debt to mask the problem. That knowledge itself is valuable. It means you stop blaming yourself for a situation that is not entirely your fault. You are not bad with money. The math is bad. Second, get ruthless about the small leaks. You cannot control rent prices or healthcare costs, but you can audit every subscription, every recurring charge, every automatic payment that comes out of your account. Most people find at least $100 a month they did not realize they were spending. Third, think about your time differently. If your job pays you a certain amount per hour, then every expense can be measured in hours of your life. That $40 impulse buy is not $40. It is 2 or 3 hours of your time on this planet. When you start seeing money as time, your decisions change. Fourth, resist the lifestyle expectations machine. Comparison is the fastest way to feel poor regardless of what you actually have. The person on Instagram with the perfect apartment might be drowning in debt. The friend with the new car might be one missed payment from repossession. You do not know anyone's real financial picture. Build your life around what makes you actually feel calm and stable, not around what looks good from the outside. And finally, talk about it. The reason this problem festers is because everybody pretends they are fine. Nobody wants to admit they are struggling because it feels like a personal failure. But it is not personal. It is systemic. And the more openly people talk about it, the harder it becomes to ignore. Conclusion. Here is what Grug would say if he could see all of this. He would say your tribe figured out how to fly through the sky, build glowing boxes that talk to each other, and put food in every building on every corner. But you could not figure out how to make sure the people doing the work can actually live from the work. That is a strange tribe. And he would be right. The modern economy is the most productive system in human history. It generates unbelievable wealth.
But somewhere along the way, the connection between working and living well got broken for a lot of people. Not everyone, but enough people that it is not an accident or a personal failure. It is a design flaw. You are not crazy for feeling broke even though you have a job. You are noticing something real. The gap between what life costs and what work pays has been widening for decades, and you are living inside that gap every single day. The first step is to stop feeling guilty about it. The second step is to understand it clearly. And the third step is to make whatever moves you can, both personally and collectively, to close that gap, even a little bit, so that having a job actually means something again. Because work should be the answer.
It should not be the question.